Here's what's coming up on today's show.
And that was probably the worst, certainly in my career, that was the worst part. Being in the business, that was probably the toughest one.
Hello, this is Mark Silverman, managing member and founder of Silverman & Associates, and I'm also a certified financial planner professional. I want to welcome you to the Saving with Silverman podcast. I'm glad you're here. Each week, we'll discuss different financial planning topics because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
Hey, Mark, I'm wondering if you saw this story about a fire at the Associated Milk Producers plant in Portage, Wisconsin. Recently melted several tons of butter, causing butter runoff into the nearby historic canal. Fire crews had difficulty accessing the building because the butter runoff was so thick going up the stairs that they could barely walk. That's kind of a funny situation, but a really serious scenario.
I've never heard of Portage. I'll have to ask Christine because she's actually from Wisconsin.
Good.
But, yeah, why are they melting so much butter? I don't get that. It seems like it's wasteful, wouldn't it be?
Man, a butter runoff, I guess it's sort of...
Never heard of such a thing.
You know,
I'm in Arizona.
Outpaced its boundaries or whatever, its capacity. So, whatever. Hope they have that situation straightened out.
Very strange.
Now.
Yep.
Hey, let's talk about Black Swan events.
Okay.
You know, 2022 was a rough year in the market, but it's hard to attribute it to any one particular trend. It was more of a confluence of various factors. And I don't know about you, but I'm glad to put 2022 behind us.
Me as well.
But let's review some of the absolute worst days, weeks, and years in market history, because we all love reliving that pain, you know.
Sure. We don't know where we are till we know where we've been, right?
Yeah, that's true. What caused them and what did we learn? First of all, there is something called Black Tuesday, which goes all the way back to the 20s. Tell us about that one.
Yeah, Black Tuesday was October 29th, 1929. And the Dow fell something like 12%, which obviously was right around the time of the Great Depression. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I wasn't alive for that time. Maybe some of you were. But, yeah, that was a tough time. But that was Black Tuesday.
Yeah, that was nearly 100 years ago. My goodness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, true.
Well, as you said, it kind of resulted in the Great Depression. And I guess all of us who did not live through it should be thankful for that.
Correct.
There was also something more recent. Back in the year 2000, there was the dot-com crash. What about that one?
Yeah, and I was in the business at that time. That was April 14th, 2000, and that was when the tech bubble burst, per se. And it lasted a couple years. It was a tough go, but at that point, it was all these tech companies, .com companies, et cetera, the returns were crazy. I mean, I have stories of people who were making, 50% and weren't happy because somebody else they knew was making 75%. So It was not sustainable. So it was surprising, but it wasn't surprising, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a .com crash, and I was early in my career at that point.
Not too long after that, less than a year and a half later, September 17th, 2001 was a really big day because of what happened on September 11th.
Yep. I know exactly where I was at that time. It's kind of, I think a lot of people know when they first saw that happening that morning. But yeah, that was tough on the market. They halted trading and things like that. And then September 17th is when the markets finally reopened. And of course, they went down significantly.
Yeah. 2008, we had another financial crisis. Explain that one if you would.
Yeah, and that one, there's a lot of different theories on that one, but that one I think had to do a lot with the real estate market and a lot of the loans that were out there and that sort of thing. Lehman Brothers went down, and that one lasted, that started in like fourth quarter of 07 and went all the way through March of 09, so it was a good 18 months. So it was tough. And that was probably the worst, certainly in my career, that was the worst part. Being in the business, that was probably the toughest one. Yeah. Because everything was down, real estate, and there was people losing their houses, and it was tough. But, we survived, and, by middle to late 09, things were back on track.
Until we survived pretty well, actually, really well, until the early days of the pandemic. And things just went crazy there for a short while. Didn't take long to recover from that, right?
Well, no. In fact, so when the pandemic hit, and that could be questionable when that first hit, but it was somewhere around February or so, and it was a couple months where things were down. And luckily with my clients, we stayed the course. And it came back. The market was down like 30% pretty quickly. The market came back within a couple months. In fact, it was the fastest recovery we've ever seen in the markets, which just reinforces why we don't try to time the markets, because there's people that probably still haven't got back in that got out back, during that time.
Yeah.
And then through the pandemic, the markets did phenomenal, especially considering everything was closed. So you just never know.
We've talked about all these Black Swan events, Black Tuesday, the dot-com crash, September 7th, 2001, following the September 11th attacks, the 2008 financial crisis, early days of the pandemic, and all that's well and good until the next one comes along, and we don't really know when or what that's going to be.
We don't. I mean, we can look at past performance and past things that have happened and use that as kind of a guide, but that doesn't obviously guarantee what's going to happen in the future. With that being said, we haven't had too many times where the market's been down a couple years in a row. And this past year, obviously 2022, everything was down like we discussed. But you also came off the longest bull market we've ever had of, say 14 years or so, which is a very, very long time. And, human nature, we get spoiled. And after 14 years of positive returns, you kind of get used to thinking you always make money. And unfortunately, that's not the reality. The markets work if you stay invested and being in the right investments and staying the course, which is easier said than done, I know. But that's one of the services we provide our clients, and that's kind of how we help our clients make the markets work for them rather than trying to time it and get in and out.
Mark, we always talk about that complimentary 20-minute introductory call with you. And nobody else. Mark Silverman will be the one to talk to you. What's involved in that first conversation?
Sure. So it's just a conversation of anything that you want to discuss. It's a new year. 2022 is behind us. Certainly all the challenges of 22 aren't behind us. So, what's the strategy? What worked? What didn't work last year? And, going forward, how should you position yourself? Whether you're still working or you're retired, whatever it might be, this is an opportunity to have a conversation with me. No strings, no cost, nothing like that. And I'll answer any questions that you have. And, if we decide that we're on the same page, we can talk about next steps as far as how we work with clients and how we help them. But really, this is just the initial introductory call is what we call it. And nothing happens until we start there.
You've been listening to the Saving with Silverman podcast. If you have any questions at all about your financial situation, please give Mark Silverman a call. Again, his number is 520-333-7601. Or go online to savingwithsilverman.com. For Mark Silverman, I'm Ron Stutz. We'll see you next time on the Saving with Silverman podcast.
The Saving with Silverman podcast is brought to you by Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC, based in Tucson, Arizona. The show is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and everywhere you listen to shows. Subscribe to the show on your favorite app today and never miss an episode. Just search for Saving with Silverman to find us, or visit savingwithsilverman.com to listen to past episodes, to contact Mark, and to learn more about how to make smarter decisions with your money.
Did you know that Mark Silverman also has a radio show? Tune in to Saving with Silverman Saturdays and Sundays at 3 p.m. on AM 790 KNST.
All matters discussed on this show are for informational purposes only. Opinions expressed are solely those of Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC, and staff. All topics covered are believed to be from reliable sources. However, Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC makes no representation as to its accuracy or completeness. This show shall in no way be construed as a solicitation to sell securities or investment advisory services to residents of any state other than Arizona or where otherwise permitted. Topics should be discussed with your individual advisor prior to implementation. Fee-based financial planning and investment advisory services offered through Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor in the state of Arizona. Insurance products and services are offered through Silverman & Associates, an affiliated company.